Brooke speaking.
Hello, it's your girl Stevie.
Hello, Stevie.
And Steve, what are we doing? What is this?
Yeah.
It's
The
Help
Podcast.
Podcast. And today, as you guys might have
Picked up
we have a wonderful guest, and we can get into the podcast a little bit later, but I was going to see if you would just give us kind of like a quick intro on yourself, your background, and maybe what like led you to starting your podcast.
Absolutely. So, my name is Sean. I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee, and I'm a filmmaker who currently lives in Los Angeles. I've been in the film industry for about 14 years now. I think I started in 2006 as a production assistant, getting coffee and taking out trash and what have you. And I've just sort of worked my way up over the years through art department and props, which sort of designs the sets and props and whatnot, into directing, which I started doing professionally about 5 or 6 years ago. And then I'm taking a year off of film to focus on a scripted narrative sci-fi horror podcast that I have called Friends
That's
of
really
the Friend.
cool.
Okay. Friends of the Friend.
Thanks.
I like it a lot. I got to listen to, I think, the first 2 episodes, and then I jumped ahead and listened to the Valentine's episode that you recommended.
Did you listen to it on your walk with the dog?
Yes, yeah, just to get in like a little creepy mood, you know.
The sun was going down.
I like to be on my toes when I walk my dog, like always looking behind me, you know.
Yeah. Do you like scary stuff in general?
I'm finding in my older age, almost 30, I'm starting to like it a lot more. Like when I was younger, I really disliked it. What about you, Steve?
I love it.
You've always loved it?
No, I just have to watch it with somebody. It's a shared thing. It's a shared experience.
Yeah, it's a
As long as
social
you have,
experience a lot of times.
Yeah, like I'm not about to do this by myself, you know. But like if we do it together,
Yeah.
It's going to work out a little bit better.
definitely.
Also, if you see it in the theater, it's fun if you see a scary movie in the theater and everybody's screaming at the same time, or, laughing uncontrollably out of discomfort or fear or whatever reactions that they're having. It's really fun when people are vocal at a horror movie,
Yes.
I think. Also, I get kind of scared by that stuff, so it's nice to be around other people if stuff is scary for sure, or whatnot.
Agreed.
Gotta grab onto something sturdy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that make sense?
Is it
I think so.
Is something sturdy your date, Steve? Which is just your husband at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
But he gets scared too. We're both screwed.
Does your husband like horror movies as well, or any kind of scary stuff?
Oh, it's not his first pick, but it's kind of hard to tell because I think he goes around the bush about it. I'm like, yeah, let's watch a horror film. He's like, I'm just not in the mood. But what I really think he's telling me is like, I'm not trying to get scared right now. I'm not in the mood for that.
Yeah.
And if you're scared and I'm scared, then there's, not working.
It's not working. Everybody's scared. We're freaking out.
Everybody's scared. The night's ruined. And then everybody...
Why did you suggest this, Stevie?
Yeah, for sure. Hey, I think it's really cool that you've done film for 14 years.
Yeah.
And you've worked your way up, and now you're using podcasts as a platform for storytelling.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I love the democracy, the democratic aspect of it, meaning anybody can do it and anybody can find it. And I often say to people who are wanting, recent college graduates or whatnot who want to maybe move to LA and get into the film industry, I think I suggest to them a lot, like maybe just start a YouTube channel or a, Snapchat channel or something. Like if you want to tell stories and make entertainment, like there's no barriers right now keeping you from doing that. And the film industry is a long and tough road of with a lot of suffering that can sort of be circumvented in a lot of ways. And so it's nice to get in on that. I mean, the kind of stuff that I can do on my show, I just can't do professionally currently. Like, I haven't been allowed to. I've done, professionally, I've done a lot of branded content. I've done a lot of music, documentary and music content, and I'm always beholden to teams of other people, 20 or 30 other people who all have opinions about, what we should film, how we should do this, how we should edit it, that whole thing. And so it's very refreshing to just be able to be completely free and put out what I want to do, and everybody who's doing it now, and the audio drama community in general are really practicing some great creativity and connecting with people. And a lot of those people would not have been able to have a voice, just 10 years ago online at all without this medium.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. Well, and now Thanks. We live in a world where it's like everybody creates their own content. And like, you're right with, like, if people want to go to LA and stuff, just start your own YouTube, because it's like you can create your own content at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And LA's good for, you can sort of learn about distribution. You can learn about how bigger budget things get filmed and, who does what and different sorts of equipment and whatnot. But, anybody anywhere can really just start on that journey without coming to this sunny but dark city. Is the way I think about it.
Is that how you think about it?
I like that a lot. I would say that, like, this kind of, I can see a segue into our topic for today, where I find personally, like, with the internet, there are so many opportunities for different things that I'd like to do. But the thing that keeps me back is my fear, my extreme fear, my extreme anxiety.
Yeah.
My just, like, ridiculous irrational fear of, like, being judged. It's come up for me in, like, the last week even, of like, oh, I'm not doing this thing because I'm afraid of what people will think. Okay, all right, cool to realize that.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's get into that a little bit and tell us about your history, like, within the film industry, even, like, different ways that that has come up for you, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, one of the big things for me was I really had been writing these scripts for a long time and trying to, do something with them, and it's very hard to get a script made and filmed. And I was actually working at Spotify full-time before I started this podcast venture, and I was in the video department over there, and we had a video program, and we were filming with a lot of different bands and whatnot. And we shifted a lot of our attention in our department over to podcasts. And so I saw the potential in the space from sort of an inside perspective while I was there. And then when I left, I was like, I'm going to really try to do this for myself. And the fear that you were talking about, Brooke, about being judged, I mean, that was definitely huge for me. I mean, being on a film crew or working your way up and being sort of in a department, there's a lot of shields from that fear, because there's always somebody else to kind of, that has final control over the products and whatnot. And, fear also drove me as a filmmaker professionally to, like, do a great job. I mean, of course there's money and stuff, but a lot of times, I know people are going to see these things, and I am scared of being judged so tremendously. And then before I launched this show, I was writing it for a very long time. I had been writing every day and rewriting and the scripts, and I was terrified of being judged before I launched it. I mean, I would stay awake when it got close to the launch time, which was December. like for several weeks beforehand, I would be up late. Oh, what if people think this and that, and what if they think I'm like a pervert because there's like weird sex stuff in my show, or what if they think I'm some sort of sociopath because it's also kind of violent in there, or what if what if they read so far into what I'm saying, the messages and the characters in the show, and they find out things about me or whatever. Like there was tons of
just
anxiety.
like a laundry list
about that.
of what ifs.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
Wow,
constantly.
That's wild.
And every time I release a new episode, I go through it again. Basically.
Yeah. Was that kind of like debilitating in a way? And then, you know what? I feel like also film and TV shows, like, they are like the platform for people. I mean, Instagram is great for that too, but like for people to just put their opinion out there always, and you'll get positive and negative feedback at all times.
Oh my gosh. Last night I got home from a friend's birthday party and I was feeling good. It was like a little costume party and everybody was dressed sort of like cowboy. It was very cute. And I was feeling great. I was going to go to bed, and I had a couple things to do today in this show, and I'm auditioning for my next episode. And I clicked on my show to see if there was any new reviews on it, and the reviews have been completely positive to date. And somebody wrote a very, very mean 1-star review on my show that I saw last night, and I was so upset. It was kind of the first like mean bad one I'd gotten. And I was like, it kept me up for an extra like hour and a half. I was like, who is this person? Why are they doing it?
Why do they hate me?
They're from Nebraska.
Who knows even where they're from? Yeah, why do they hate me? And maybe that, And then a fear comes in too about like, oh, well, what if I guess when I keep releasing these things, I'm going to get more and more of those, and everybody's going to, read them and see what a faker I am or whatever that's what this review was sort of calling me, I think. And, so that's, I mean, and it's going to happen. There are people, they're going to do it. I don't know if y'all have gotten it yet, but I hope not, and I hope you don't, because y'all's show is great. So, but people need to, and if any listeners out here are prone to writing mean-spirited reviews, maybe, maybe don't.
Just take it elsewhere.
We're just people.
Take it elsewhere. Maybe write it in your journal and like keep it to yourself.
Yeah, that's wild.
I feel like I hear a lot just with listening to different podcasts with people who are like in the public eye or whatever. Like they just can't even look at Instagram or Twitter comments because there's like, obviously, like you're saying, like you've had nothing but like great reviews up to this point, but then it's like this one negative one where like when you look at the weight of it in comparison to the positive things, like it shouldn't like affect someone that much. But I feel like as humans we're like predisposed to just like siphon in on that negative one and like forget all about the 5-star ones.
100%.
It's just like in our nature to do that.
And rejection's another thing that sort of plays into fear and into the same topic, in fear of rejection, which I have to a very large degree. And same sort of thing. Like I remember the times in my life when I was rejected, be that, romantically or professionally or just other kinds of rejection. And those like just stick with me for way too long. And I think the fear of that also comes from the fear of rejection is partially because, I know that if I do receive more rejections, like they're gonna stick with me. But I think that what happens over time, and I'm fortunate to sort of be learning this lesson, is it becomes, you get enough of them and then they just sort of like fade, it doesn't sting as bad, I guess, after a while.
You start getting used to it a little bit.
Yeah, you start.
I'm like, I'm like still waiting for that on my end, you know.
Haven't reached that enlightenment.
You haven't, Steve?
Well, actually,
then go Sean. Kudos to Sean.
I don't know. You know what? I don't know. The only people I care about are my friends and stuff. And, and y'all give me...
Yeah.
Y'all support me even things you probably shouldn't support me with.
Like, yeah, sure, Steve, do that.
Feedback is great.
I was trying to explain to someone, and like, Sean, you can maybe speak to this if this is how it feels for you, but like fear of rejection and like kind of almost just like a fear. It's a little bit just like a fear of other people for me, like a social anxiety, but the fear of rejection is like, the fear of rejection or like upsetting someone because that equals rejection in my brain. It's like this just a general like feeling of like just don't, it's like a freeze almost for me, like if I'm in a confrontation of any sort, like it's some chemical thing, like a physical sensation that's happening in my body that's like it's telling me in that moment, and I feel it throughout my entire body of like, don't like do whatever you can in this situation to make the other person okay. Like don't get rejected.
Crazy? Yes.
And it's for me, it's with everybody. Like it's with every person, whether I know them very well. That's almost worse sometimes. Or like they're strangers. So yeah.
Brooke, we share that tendency to a very large extent.
Okay, cool.
Because I feel the exact same way, and it's a tricky way to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure. It's a hard thing to. I just feel that it's a hard thing to overcome because obviously the first thing is awareness that is a situation that happens to you.
Yes.
But the awareness of it doesn't make it any easier in the moment. Like it doesn't, because in the moment you're having this physical reaction where like it's very hard to talk to yourself when you have all of that fear just like running through your body.
Right.
So I find that I often like will be in the situations and then like 10 minutes later I'm like, oh, this is what I should have done. Or like, this is what I should have said.
Oh yeah.
Like, is it, excuse me, is it too late? Is it too late to do that now?
Yeah. And then you send an awkward text message 3 days later or something like, hey, by the way, Dan, when we were talking the other day about, I actually meant to say that I did that not too long ago. I had drinks with a friend who is also because I do the same thing a lot. And I had drinks with a friend who's also a professional colleague, sort of. And but I really like this guy, and we get along good, but I get very nervous sometimes just in those settings because we're not that close. And after I left there, and I think it was probably good, we hung out for a couple hours, had a couple beers, and chatted about professional stuff. But for like 3 days, I was poring over that conversation, thinking, I should have said this, I should have said that, he's going to think this of me, all sorts of stuff like that. And to the point where I feel the need to like clarify what I meant in some particular conversation via text message like 3 days later. It's torturous. It's a weird, it's a very strange way to be. It really sticks with you. And I get that social anxiety constantly, and it's getting better with age. When in high school, I was extraordinarily awkward, and I would hide at parties. Sometimes actually went to a party in Tennessee, just outside of Nashville, like where I'm from, in the woods, and it was like a bonfire party in this big clearing, and it was just a very normal, innocent, like teenage high school party. And I got so socially anxious walking up to the group. There's probably like, I don't know, 100 people there from my high school, that I literally went and hid in the woods for about 30 minutes or so until I calmed down enough to like come out and talk to people. That's my social anxiety, and it's a lot better nowadays. I just have sort of learned over time. A lot of it's like with therapy and sort of like what you were talking about, Brooke, about sort of feeling understanding the sensation and the fear that you're feeling in the moment of whatever it is, people judging you or not accepting you or whatever that fear is that's leading to social anxiety, and just sort of separating it and realizing it's not necessarily the truth. As a matter of fact, it's most certainly not the truth.
Definitely very far from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was curious because I've heard like, black, I guess, we live in like Austin area. We have a lot of people from California moving here. I hear like good and bad. Like, do you think there's like kind of like where you're living at, like maybe a pressure that is normal? Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure here. One for sure is sort of a financial pressure. It's an extremely expensive city to live in. So if, you're not doing, it's a very career-driven city, especially for the people who move here and the kind of scenes that revolve around the entertainment industry, which, I'm in, and pretty much everybody I know is either full on in the entertainment industry or they were at one point and recently kind of left to have a calmer life. So there's a lot of pressure, societally to be doing cool stuff. Maybe you look around and the people or the people who are at the party with you are, just released some movie on A24, or they just have a TV show going on, or they're, all kinds of stuff like that. So it can really build, but that's another, largely internal thing. So it's really kind of learning how to not compare yourself with other people, or for me, a lot of that, and being able to feel more comfortable is just accepting ourselves for who we are, I think. And maybe that's a reason why New Age spiritualism and yoga-based movements are so popular in Los Angeles. Socially, it's such a difficult place to navigate that we need kind of little mottos and whatnot to keep us going out here.
That's true. I'd never thought about that. It's like transcendental meditation is really big in LA, right?
Oh, it's huge. David Lynch,
I don't know what that is.
Hero, loves it.
Nice.
Jerry Seinfeld. Transcendental meditation it's a mantra-based meditation. So I kind of do it actually, but not the movement of it. There's like a different kind of called Vedic meditation that I do, but it's just a way to separate your thoughts from your feelings, sort of. For me, that's what I take from it, and I'm able to be a little calmer in a lot of situations, a little less stressed out in a lot of situations, not react as much, and be a little more creative as well. David Lynch, the film director, who's one of my favorites, he's a huge proponent of the benefits of that for creativity. And if you've ever watched his stuff, it's very creative, surreal, outlandish, everything like that.
Nice. I like it. I think we previously talked a little bit about this, Sean, but I did like a vinyasa meditation course last summer, which is different from transcendental in that like there's no mantra happening. You're just like becoming very aware of like your physical sensations, then like you're becoming aware of them, and then you're practicing not reacting to them. And kind of the thought process, or like the practice behind that, is when like there are 4 different stages of mind that they kind of compare to like muscles, and one of the stages is a reaction. And the thought is that like we just kind of blindly react so often that our reaction muscle in our mind is so super strong. So instead of thinking and evaluating things, we're going straight to reaction. So this is kind of a way to like train you out of going to just like straight to some sort of blind reaction and like actually evaluating your thoughts and stuff. And I
Yes.
mean, it was when I got back from that 10-day course, it was like the best I've ever felt in my life. Like, I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me. Like, reject me, whatever. It's fine.
I'm a new woman.
And then
Were
I
you
haven't meditated in like 4 months. And I'm like, I wonder why I'm so stressed out.
were you wearing bold outfits when you got back as well? You're like, I think I can pull this off now.
Weirdly, that's like the one area of life that I've never had any anxiety about. I've always been like, I'm wearing the craziest shit that I can
Okay. Nice.
at all times. So
Yeah,
come at me.
You have to come out with us sometime because she's like the velvet. You got these
got
like
it.
velvet shoes, man.
I've got velvet on
Killing
velvet
it.
on
Nice.
velvet.
Yeah.
I've got a
Nice.
velvet jumpsuit. I've got 2 pairs of velvet pants.
Yes.
Whoa, wait.
What color
One of
velvet
the velvet
jumpsuit?
pants. It's red. It's like a bright red.
Oh, wow.
Just in case you don't see it, you're going to
You're gonna
see
see.
it.
Nice.
We're
Yeah.
gonna double down.
Yeah, that's a good classic. That's a disco a look.
Yeah. Oh,
Disco movement, baby.
heck yes. I'm so here for it.
Starting a trend.
But if I had been alive in the 60s and 70s, I would have been too socially anxious to go to a disco. So I just
Yeah.
would have worn the clothes around town.
Well,
Yeah.
one interesting thing I think about our general. So, Brooke, you moved to Austin from somewhere else. Stevie, are you from Austin or did you move there? As well?
So, let me tell you, Sean. Your girl is from Louisiana.
Oh,
So,
Nice.
but was raised in Houston, like outskirts of Houston. So, which is Katy area. But not, now people are familiar with it. Back in the day when I'd be like, Katy, they're like, where's that?
What's Katy?
And I'd be like, okay, Houston. But,
Yeah.
okay, we'll try something else because I don't feel like explaining it. But, and then, yeah, I've lived in Austin for a hot second now.
nice.
You moved here after high school, right?
Yeah, I was like, I saved up all my money in my account. I was working, and I was like, I just picked up all my stuff, and I chose Austin
Nice.
because I was like, man, all the weirdos are there. I need
That's
to be
where
with
I
my
belong.
people.
Yeah. Is that what drew
My
you? Was
people.
the weirdos or the arts music? What drew you there?
It was so Houston is a very heavily like kind of career mindset, I would
Like
say.
a professional, young
Yeah,
professional.
and that was great, but I didn't feel comfortable like to be myself there. I always felt like I was like so different and somehow and had always heard tales of like just Austin being a good like work life balance and my really immature days. Like I don't know how I would word that, but my immature mind would not put that together in
Yeah.
a sentence like that.
But now you can look back.
But
at
now
it
I can
that
look
way.
back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just wanted something different. I just wanted to identify myself away from everybody I kind of was around at the time.
Yeah.
And I was also kind of freaking out. I was like in a midlife crisis at the time. So I moved here.
Yeah. Were
I'd be
you
lying if I didn't mention that.
were you able to sort of like establish yourself, make some friends pretty quickly and figure out stuff to do and whatnot there?
Yes, Brooke was actually one of my first friends I made.
Oh, nice.
There's like, yeah, you know how you like hang out with people and there's people that it's like the vibe is your tribe, and then there's other people it's like you're gonna hang out, you'll have a perfectly fine time, but it is in your tribe, you know.
Yes. Yes.
I was lucky to find like 2 or 3 people that were like my tribe, and also just like Brooke. I'm really grateful for Brooke because. I don't know how many people I can talk to and know that they have like good intentions. They're not ill-willed and overall just a normal, she thinks she's wild, but just a normal person to just be around, So I'm lucky for that. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. I
That's
do what I can.
Yeah, I can see how so we've all moved to different cities from our hometown, and I can totally see how people like certain maybe personality types could develop or could really experience social anxiety in those situations when you're moving to new places and meeting strangers. I feel like in 300 years ago people didn't do that really as much. I mean, 400 years
Right.
ago, 500 years ago. I mean, people would immigrate to different countries, but they'd sort of, for the most part, like stay in their village or their neighborhood, didn't really live in like cities all that much and
Right,
weren't
yeah.
really around. But, now we do all that stuff. And for some of us, I think we just have to kind of train ourselves to be able to manage it and not freak out about it. Like,
right.
Yeah, definitely. We haven't figured it out.
Same.
Sean haven't figured it out yet.
Yeah. We're all in it together. We're all figuring it out together.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's so true, though. I've never thought about, like, kind of the evolution of that. Like, even when people were immigrating, like you said, a lot of times it's, like, with their family or, like, with they're immigrating to a country because they have people they know there, so they kind of go directly into, like, a tribe. But yeah, when I moved to Austin, it was the same thing. Like, I didn't know anybody. It was just like, hey, here I am. Which sometimes when I look back on that now, I'm like, I would never, who was that? Like, I would never be brave enough to do that.
No, we all do those things that you did in your young 20s. You just look back, you're like, was not the top brass. Or, like, probably wouldn't do that now.
Yeah.
The gray area.
I look back on my 20s a lot, and funny enough, like, when we spoke before the show, I was saying that I'm a very fearful person in general, and so that takes the form of social anxiety as well as a lot of just other kinds of fears. Like, I'm literally scared of the dark. I keep, like, a nightlight, and I'm a grown-ass man who just, if I don't, I'll start thinking that I'm hearing, I don't know, monsters or ghosts or whatever. It's crazy for even me at this age. And I don't know if I'll ever get to that point where I'm like, I can just turn off all the lights and fall asleep with, like, no, background noise or whatever, and not think that ghosts or monsters or beings are going to come after me for whatever reason, even though they haven't to date. I mean, I'm still here.
Sure.
They've had a lot of opportunity. I mean, even last night I was out cold. If they wanted to get me, they could have come, but still tonight, I'm sure I'll need
like,
to do it.
This could be the night. This could be
this
the
could
night
be,
of all the
they could
nights.
finally,
They've been biding
maybe.
their time.
Maybe I said something today that upset them or
them
whatever.
Off.
Yeah, but
Today you said
in my
they didn't exist, You're like, y'all don't exist. And they're like, motherfucker, just wait till you sleep.
They're like, we'll show you. You don't believe in me. Here I come to demonstrate, and with and they'll come out in full force with bring all their friends. Hey, let's go scare this guy. But I remember in my 20s, like, I've always been this way, but I was real into. I developed a lot of drug and alcohol kind of hobbies and tendencies. And I feel like that was very fear numbing in a lot of ways. And so because of that, I would do things I would almost go like the opposite extreme and do things that were like dangerous, sort of, because I was like numb. So then the healthy fears were sort of gone too. Like, I got real into writing. I lived in New York City for a little bit in the mid 2000s. I got real into, like, riding fixed gear bicycles through Manhattan traffic, which is very dangerous. A lot of people do it, but it's like you're always going to get hit by cars and stuff like that. And I don't, and I spent a lot of my 20s doing dangerous things. And I think that there was just this, like, almost, I'm so consumed by fear all the time. It was almost like a reaction to like take it overboard and, like, face them, but not in healthy ways, like facing the fears or numbing the fears, and then just being, outlandish, engaging in dangerous behaviors. And age is a nice thing, I think, for me, in that just, like, you sort of learn to chill out a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think that fear does play a large role in addiction and drug and alcohol abuse, and anxiety for sure plays into that stuff. And they're very connected, fear and anxiety, I think.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of that where when I was drinking, it was almost like this, it was like an escape from the fearful Brooke, because all of my inhibitions were lowered. I was like a completely different person. I would like do like say things socially that I wouldn't say normally. For me, it was like an escape of like getting out of my fears, but then they just would, and this is really the main reason that I don't drink anymore, is because I would escape from them. And then when I woke up the next morning, it's just like my fears were back like tenfold. Like, oh my God, what did I do last night? What did I say?
Oh my gosh, that has to be the worst. Man, there's people out there, they live guilt-free.
Yeah, I don't get that.
No, I skipped that bus. I'm like apologizing out the gate.
Yeah, and I think that that's when I realized that like, I had some physical side effects as well from drinking that I was not loving, like not being able to eat or drink food for an entire weekend. But that realization of just like, okay, this is something, I'm doing this to get away from my fear and to get away from my anxiety. But the next day it's coming back at me like even worse than it was before.
Yes.
So like I'm using this as a tool to manage, and like it's a horrible tool. It does not fit the description. It's not right for the job.
Right.
I've got to figure something else out.
Yeah. And what things have you figured out that you think that have helped so far?
I would say meditation is definitely, though I don't do it as often as I should, that has been really helpful. And like just honestly like being sober and having a clear head, because it's not like I was ever like drinking every day or like needing alcohol, but just it's just a very different feeling to just be like completely clear-headed all the time. So that's been like really helpful for me. And then I don't really know what's going on like with improv, but so for like months on end, I've just been like so incredibly fearful around it and like not wanting to get out there, not wanting to do stuff. Not wanting to be in scenes, not wanting to perform. And probably like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I knew that that's what was happening the whole time. Like I was just in my head. I was worried about what people would think. I was worried about doing the wrong thing. Fear of judgment, fear of rejection.
Yeah.
And in my head, and that like physical feeling was coming up. So I honestly just like sat down and like had a discussion with myself of like, had a come to Jesus meeting with myself of like, this is what you're doing. You know, this is what you're doing. The only option you have here is you just have to make the choice to not do that anymore and to like ignore that voice when it comes up and get out there, do a scene and prove to yourself and show yourself that like, it's fine, you're fine. Nobody's going to hate you because you did a silly scene. Like, it's going to be okay. So, like, in realizing that, I'm like, all right, maybe I can kind of take that experience specifically and move forward in other areas in my life where I'm affected by anxiety and be like, all right, it's time to make that choice here. Can you do it? It's like a game show.
Just by myself. It happens in my head.
Mm-hmm, it really does.
Nobody's seeing it. Nobody knows it's going on, but I do.
It seems to me, and I've known a lot of improv people out here in LA, and it seems to me that a big part of that... Stevie, you're in improv too, right? You're in that as well?
I'm in an acting class. I do Meisner.
Okay, yeah, but similar with Meisner and improv, like it seems to me that there's a big part of it that is about sort of overcoming fears. I think because you have to perform in front of people. Meisner and improv both kind of teach you to really tap into something deeper within yourself, I think, and let yourself go, and let your inhibitions down to a large extent, like in front of other people, and to drop your fear. Have either of y'all noticed that since you've been doing like Meisner and improv that you've gotten better at that in general, just with people like at work, in situations, social situations, relationships?
Yeah.
Improv gave me a lot of realizations of like just the crossover between like letting go in that situation and doing that in life. So I've definitely had that realization. I'm still not great at doing it across the board.
Okay.
It hasn't gotten a ton. It's probably a little bit easier, but not like breeze by any mean. What about any means?
Any
What about
means,
you,
easy
Steve?
being breezy.
Easy being breezy.
I definitely learned a lot.
Yeah.
I've learned so much.
And
I don't
it's
even. Yeah, just
easily
listening.
applicable.
Applicable. Blah blah
Applicable,
blah
blah,
blah blah. I definitely I learned how to get over myself. That
That's
was like
good.
one of the biggest things I think I've ever learned in my
Send me
entire
your
life.
notes from that class.
Yeah, it's about just being, and I think it's just showing up every day. And when I really didn't feel like it, and I'm just like, hey, well, let's do this, and actually sucking some days, like really badly, to the point where it's like, well, you can't get any worse than this. Oh, your classmates still want to talk to you, and then you just get over it, where it's like, I just don't. It's like, for me, it's shifted my mind into stop thinking. Anyways, I don't know. Sometimes this is not work for me, but like so inward, and it's just like shifting on things other than my damn self, you know?
Can you
Ooh,
tell?
girl.
Can y'all tell, like, when you're having bad days in improv or in acting, where you're sort of having blocks and you can't quite get to, overcoming, like, really tapping into that part of yourself that you need for those disciplines? Like, are there days where you're just not hitting it right?
Yeah.
Or is it pretty consistent?
Do you have those days as well, Sean? Yeah, I definitely do.
Yeah.
But I don't know. You know what? I've messed up so many times, and then I've seen myself through those times, and then I'm just accepting of it, really, for the most part, unless it's like an audition or something I'm going to, and I totally just want to slam my head against the wall because I knew that I didn't show up for myself. I didn't go in there and just realize, you know what? Everybody wants you to be the part. Everybody wants you to.
Yeah.
And I guess I just stopped defining my life and the successes that I have, and that I'm more than just an actress and all those things. And if I fell at one role, I have other 20, like actually just 3 other roles that I can still try in.
I feel like
bring my world to an end.
I feel like you said
Does that make
something
sense?
you said something very wise just there. That whole, like, everybody wants you to do the role, and I never even thought of it that way, but it's true. I mean, that's sort of thinking that way. It seems like it could really help to get you over your self-consciousness, or for me too, because I get very self-conscious, and even in social situations, even like sometimes just like at a lunch, like I got to go to a lunch with some people, and I'll feel very, if they're people I don't know, I'll feel very self-conscious, and the same sort of self-talk of what if they judge me or think I'm weird or not cool or whatever, I think. But just even keeping that in the mind of like, oh, everybody just wants to have a nice time at the lunch, and they just want you to be nobody's coming to this thing, and nobody's going to an improv show, or nobody's the casting director is not sitting and a producer is not sitting in an audition hoping that you suck, and that you're terrible at it. They want you to be good so you can do the role. And an audience at an improv show wants you to be funny so that they can laugh, and they don't want you to like fail so that they can judge you or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't want to not laugh, They
like,
didn't come here not to laugh. You know what I mean? They want to laugh.
Yeah.
I paid my $10 for some laughs.
They didn't come to like tap into your your inner struggles,
deep fear
I guess,
of rejection.
your deep fears of rejection.
God.
I can totally see how that train of thought, that's what I feel like immediately I would feel if I ever went to improv class, which I think about all the time going to do those. I was actually tried to sign up for this clown class out here that just to learn sort of similar skills of overcoming self-consciousness, because I can get very self-conscious in all kinds of situations. And even in like playing, like we went to, do y'all have a Top Golf in Austin?
Oh,
Do you know what that
Well, we actually met working at the Top Golf in Austin.
Yeah, we did.
Oh,
So we know it
Really?
well.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, we worked there together. Triggered. Yeah.
That's
But go
That's
go
wild.
on, yeah.
what a special place, Topgolf. I was at
I
the
know.
Topgolf in Nashville. I was back visiting some family and friends, and sometimes I even get self-conscious around my own family and stuff. But I remember I enjoy Topgolf. I'm not a great golfer, but Topgolf's just sort of fun because it's a little game. But I remember going up and it was my turn and feeling like really self-conscious because my cousin was really good and my stepdad, they're really good at golf, and I was like, oh, everybody's watching me right now, and I like really locked up and got nervous and like hit the ball terribly, and I was just like, I can't do it anymore because it was just too nerve-wracking to have people watching me at Topgolf, which is insane, and it's nobody cares like how you're shooting in Topgolf, but
Sure.
to overcome that
yeah.
sort of self-consciousness in those situations that don't even call for it seems like a great thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. This is like in line with that. So I'm kind of obsessed with my mom. Like I talk to her every day. She's like my ultimate best friend. I'm almost 30. It's fine. But she came to visit, and this happens often where like she'll do something or she'll say something and I'm like, wow, it's so obvious to me like how I am exactly who I am. She was here visiting, and it was just my mom, myself, and one of my other best friends. And we went to one of those like tipsy wine thingies, the wine and paint things.
Paint?
Oh yeah.
And we brought like maybe a bottle or two of wine. This was a few years ago, and she was like so incredibly nervous and like shaking and worried and insecure about painting in front of people.
Really?
That she was like drunk before we started because she was like, I gotta drink something like before I do this. And I'm like, oh, that like just that realization of like knowing I had done one like not long before that with the girls from my office, and knowing that like I had a little bit of that to begin with, but then like just pushed through and was like, oh, okay, this is fine. But to see that in my mom of like, oh, okay, well, obviously I have this and obviously I deal with this. Like, yeah. So it's just interesting how it can affect people in different ways.
Yeah. Was she able to overcome it at the...
Yeah, she was like very critical of her painting after, but she did do it. I was like, Mom,
really
it's
sweet.
Great. It's the best one.
What was it? What was the
Fine.
painting of?
It was like a fall scene, I would say.
Yeah.
It was like a bunch of like
It's a huge leaf.
it was a lot of leaves.
Okay.
And they were like orange and red, I guess, or like brown maybe. And there was
Earthy
like
tones.
they were I used to still have mine. I think I gave it away. I was like, I'm not an artist. This does not need to be on anybody's wall.
Did you try to sell it?
Probably. I probably put it on eBay.
$400.
Handmade.
This is
Handmade.
a deal. But yeah, it was just like some sort of weird fall scene thing. But it is still, I went to her house over Christmas and she still has it hung up on her wall. So I'm like, all right, this is her proud moment, her proof of overcoming her fears. I'm here for it, Mom.
That's cute.
Mama. Mommy. Help me out.
That's very adorable. I want to.
she's
I want to
cute.
see this. I want to see the painting. It makes me.
Okay,
It's very endearing. This story.
Yeah, for sure. I'll have her snap a pic of it. She'll probably be like, what are you going to do with it? Don't put it on the internet.
I love it.
I'm terrified.
Sean, if you do the clown class, all right?
Yeah.
We want to hear about it. I want to hear about it. I didn't even know they had clown classes.
Yeah.
I think that's really
Clown
cool.
workshop.
It's like,
Yeah.
so I directed a couple of like branded content videos, and I had some actors in them, and a friend of mine who's also a director works with a couple of actors who I just have always thought that they were extremely charismatic and interesting. And they all tend to be like from this particular clown school out here. And the more I looked into it and started to notice a lot of performers have gone to this, and it's more of like the French classic style clown and less of like a circus clown, I think. And I think that they sort of teach a lot of, just charisma, like letting go, a lot of overcoming that self-consciousness is sort of, so I met the instructor of one of the courses, and he was kind of giving me that as the pitch for it. Like, even if you're not a comedic actor, which I'm not, just, it's a lesson in overcoming self-consciousness, being more confident, because, becoming able to see yourself as sort of a fool in certain ways can make you feel a little looser, I think is one of their philosophies. And I was very intrigued by this. And funny enough, this clown class was completely booked, the one I tried to sign up for.
Yeah.
So I emailed them, and she said, okay, that one's booked, but here, we got this other one. And then that one was booked. And then she emailed and said, okay, we got an opening. Somebody dropped out. And I didn't get that email for 2 days. And I tried to book that one, and it was booked. And I like sort of gave up and took some other classes and other stuff instead. But I think I want to go to it just for the general life skill of that, just to have those extra kind of tools to tap into and to make unpleasant situations feel more pleasant. And there's a lot of unpleasant situations, career-wise, socially, all that stuff, especially work-related. And what I do can get very tense sometimes, and you have to deal with a lot of people, and sometimes those situations can get heated, maybe. And so just to be able to overcome and tap into a part of us that is a little more relaxing, and be like, it's gonna be okay, and we're gonna get through this, and it's fine. You can just be like in your mind, a silly person. Not necessarily, I wouldn't start doing goofball mimes at
sure. You won't start doing
ad agency exec, but yeah. And an upset ad agency exec, pulls out. He's like, "What happened to this prop? Why is it our Burger King sandwich doesn't look quite right?" And then so I just do some weird juggling or something.
Just
not quite like that.
Everything
but,
you see.
But in the sense of being able to get through that, and because conflict can spark fears as well, and within me, and conflict's just inevitable in life sometimes, and I try to avoid it. I'm kind of conflict avoidant in general. Like, I try to stay away from it, and I think most of us sort of are, but there are people who aren't necessarily like that, and sometimes we'll also just butt heads with people, and work environments are a great place for butting heads with people and people you have different opinions from, and just sort of learning to maintain a calm through it and not get, but when that happens, I a lot of times turn it inward, in that I start to look at, if somebody calls me out for something that I did, maybe I didn't do perfectly on the thing, I'll start to, just beat myself. I'm just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I start thinking about all the times where I've also sort of failed. And so then I become, because I know that I'll go to that place from sometimes just such a simple little conflict that could be resolved so quickly, because I know that I could take it on this head trip, a personal head trip that'll last for 2 days. I'll try to avoid conflict altogether, and that's really unhealthy. I think the more healthy way is to learn how to, just get through it and not let it bother you so bad.
You are speaking my language. I like to think of it as just a negative hamster wheel. One little thing goes bad, and it's 4 days of me just mulling that thing over, why it makes me a horrible person, all of these other situations
Yes.
that have happened in my life. Like, it's a disaster.
You know what? But people like it's like there has to be a balance between saying things with conviction and being self-reflective. If you're self-reflective the whole time, it's just like a breeding ground for people to just push you around to wherever they want, even if they're in the wrong. I believe that, truly.
That's
I'm like,
true.
no, dude. I'm like, no. I can have my opinion. I should be able to stand my ground. And that's okay for us to disagree. I'm okay with that. But also know that you're wrong. Also know, sir, you are wrong in this situation. But, you know.
It's okay to disagree as long as you know you're
wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sort of turns into, a lot of times for me, this conflict can build into this sort of bigger fear too of, oh, my whole career is going to be ruined because, I screwed up an edit on one shot or something, and I start being like, oh, everybody at this place is going to hate me, and they're going to tell everybody, and I'm going to be blacklisted from Los Angeles, and I'm going to end up poor and destitute in my, when I'm 60s, childless, alone, wandering the streets of Istanbul or whatever. I don't, it goes on this long
Sean, you have a really creative mind.
Well, I think that's that's what it comes from. And I make a show that is sort of horror driven and sci-fi horror. And I think a lot of that comes from just like imagining the worst possible situations a lot. And then the world feels kind of like a scary place to me in general. Like I just feel this kind of constant darkness and threat from everyone and everything, like a lot. And so artistically, I try to translate that feeling into my show and maybe share it in a little ways with the world. Now, it's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to feel that way on their commute across town or wherever they're going whatever they're doing when they're listening to the show. But a lot of people do sort of like it, and that's a thing that keeps me going creatively, and something that I think that every artist or creative should keep in mind, that no matter what you do, how bad it is, how weird it is, how strange it is, if you're honest and you do it, and you really kind of have integrity with what you're doing, there's somebody out there that's going to gravitate towards it and like it, and that makes it all worthwhile. And not everything, it might not be a huge, chart-topping success, but somebody it will connect with, because we really are all human, and we all kind of have these certain tendencies, and we can often feel alone in these certain tendencies, and then we reach other people through art and entertainment sometimes, especially nowadays with podcasts and YouTube, whatever.
Yeah, I totally agree. I have a question just as far as like because I have a lot of things like that I would like to do creatively, but I get in this anxiety mode, and it's similar to the hamster wheel of just like going down all of these paths of what could happen, thinking of the worst things. So obviously you kind of, it kind of comes up again, you said, with each episode, but overall you've gotten past that with the podcast, it feels like. So did you have like any tactics to help you get through that?
Ooh, I feel like I sort of had to figure it out and just power through. I mean, by the time I released the show, I had been working on it for so long by that point that I was really like, I have no choice but to do it. I kind of forced myself into doing it through just putting enough time and effort into it to say that if I don't release this, it's gonna, I'm just like, will feel horrible or whatever.
Sure.
So that helped a lot. And even with all the fears and with all the, crazy scenarios that are going through my mind, that the ways that people might react, it did that. I mean, I actually thought before I released the first 2 episodes, and if anybody listens, two celebrities are heavily referenced in this sci-fi horror. Marilyn Manson and Johnny Depp are both referenced in the first episodes. And I went on this thing where I was like terrified that one of them would like sue me or something. And even though that I'm like perfectly within sort of fair use, I researched it, and the way that it's run, they can't sue. But I just had I was like, before I even released it, I was like, they're just going to shut it down before I even, begin, and, sort of going through that in my mind as well. But really,
That's pretty intense.
Yeah, I mean, like, what kinds of what kinds of things are you talking about, like, in particular? Is it like writing or film or art, painting?
Writing specifically. It's kind of, and I don't, I guess that's not that specific, but I think that that's something that I always have been interested in from an early age, but it is something that I kind of, because of fears, like my own fears and even my parents' fears, obviously like wanting me to have like a more secure and safe job, I kind of have like pushed that part of me down and not really given any attention to it in a long time. And so I often think now about like just with the internet and like even with blogging, like something as simple as blogging, like that's something that I could do to be exploring that, seeing if that is still an interest of mine. Just like give it like just saying screw it and like writing a book, like it's all things that I've wanted to do, but once I'll give myself like 2 hours, like, okay, you're just going to sit down and you're going to write and you're going to do this, you're going to post this online, and I'll sit down to write, and I'm like, oh, I'll start cleaning, like, I'll walk up to the store, like I'll call my mom, like all of these different ways to, just because all of this like immediate fear has like set in.
So I have that really bad, especially like just ADD and procrastination. And when I was in the writing process of my show, which was several months, maybe like 6 months of just writing before I started recording, I had to just like literally set time where I was like, this is writing time every day, and I would turn off my phone. I put it in, I have an upper kitchen cabinet that's hard to reach. I have to get like a chair. It's up near the ceiling. I literally will put my phone in that on Do Not Disturb because I get so distracted. And even when I put my phone like in a nearby drawer, I will just automatically grab my phone out of it because I'm so used to just. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, I'm definitely addicted to my iPhone, so I have to just literally put it where I can't reach it, where it's like a whole thing to go and grab a chair and pull it back over. And then by the time I'm grabbing the chair, I realize, oh yeah, I'm not supposed to look at this right now. And so that sort of forces to do it. And I think it's like, I get inspired by not only necessarily people who are artists who are doing cool stuff, which is very obviously inspirational, but I think I also get driven by people who are doing stuff that's similar, that they're just terrible at it and they suck, but they can still find an audience and they can still find connection with people. Like there are still people who like it. And so that inspires me. When I see people who are finding success in the medium, but they're just not like good at it, I'm like, oh, well, if they can do it, like, that kind of thing. Or I'm driven by wanting to make entertainment or art that's sort of better than a lot of the stuff that I'm seeing. When I moved to LA first, which was 2010, 10 years ago, I had already been working in TV a little bit in New York, and then I moved back home to Nashville, and I was like, the quality of programming that was going on in 2010 was pretty bad. I mean, it was like right at the explosion, the reality show explosion. And I did work in reality TV, but I saw a lot of, I personally just saw like, so, and then I worked on other reality shows out here. Yeah. Kitchen Nightmares, Cupcake Wars. I was actually like in an episode of Cupcake Wars, which was fun too.
Were you?
And
Were you making the
Wow.
cupcakes?
I was like,
I had no
I was-
idea how much of your work I've enjoyed until this moment.
For like years later, and I still every now and then somebody will like send me like a picture that they took of the TV of me like in Cupcake Wars, and they'll be like, "Is this you?" I played a set designer because I was, I said I was doing that for a while, like designing sets and props, and I went on that show and played somebody who was designing a cupcake display, basically, and the contestants were consulting me with me, and I didn't actually design anything. They had a team off camera who designed it, but I got to go on TV. I was very nervous when they were like, they have the stage out there. And I remember like we walked out onto the big stage and the cameras. I was like, my heart was like racing so fast. Talking about fear, like I was like freaking out, and then kind of just got into a zone with it somehow, where I was just reacting, just sort of talking and reacting to whatever the host guy said.
Nice.
But but I was seeing this before I moved to LA, and I just, there was a lot of shows, for the fun reality shows that there was a lot that were just utter nonsense and kind of garbage. And I consider myself to be an artist in a lot of ways, and I just wanted to make stuff that was better than what I was seeing on TV. And this was, and so I was like driven by that in a lot of ways, and I think I still am, as like a creative driving force, and I think it helps to I don't know, make me work at it. Just seeing like poorly done stuff makes me want to do something that's like better than I'm seeing or whatever.
Yeah, that's
so maybe
true.
that will help.
That's a good inspiration. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna write that one down. Next time I see like a poorly written article, I'm gonna be like, put that in your pocket.
Yeah.
You can do it, bro.
On the flip side, like in what you hear a lot from creatives is when you see an artist that, and especially for me, even though I don't really work in the fine arts, I love the fine arts, and so I like to go to galleries and museums, and when I see artists that are pushing the boundaries of what is like normal and acceptable, and having the courage to do that, or the just insight to do that, that's always extremely inspiring to me. And that could be video artists, that could be filmmakers, that can be painters, and that could be, stand-up comedians, whatever it is. That's always like a very touching and inspirational thing.
No, well, you obviously love it because you've done it for so many years, and I think people who have like shallow reasons for like doing film and stuff, it's not really like a longevity thing for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you have to have something more with depth than, today I'm gonna go act because I'm gonna make money, and it's like no no
Right.
no.
You're not. That's not gonna happen.
Or it's like, it would not be the top brass of things. Like, you're like, I'm going to make money. It's just, you just got to build. And it's not so much about the money because you don't even see it for years.
It's like what's the Mark Manson thing about goals? Like, you have to pick the goal, or like you have to choose your pain, basically.
Oh, yeah. You have to choose your shit sandwich.
Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
What shit
What
sandwich
is
are you
this?
going to eat every day?
have you ever heard of Mark? It's Mark Manson,
Yeah,
right?
Mark Manson.
His book is, oh gosh.
The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck.
Yes. Thank you, Steve.
Oh yeah, I've seen that on a lot on bookshelves, and I've seen friends reading it, but I haven't. What's the deal with it?
Yeah, basically it's like, don't kind of with the same example that Stevie just gave, like don't pick acting because of like, oh, I want to be a famous actress and like I want to make all this money or whatever, because you're gonna go through a lot of shit before that, so you have to like,
or even if that even happens, it's like,
yeah,
but like,
or
why
like
would
to
that
get
be
close
a sole
to that
reason?
So like you have to pick like the thing, like know that everything that you choose you're gonna go through a lot, so you have to pick the thing that's like that's worth going through for.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. For me, I mean, in working in TV and film, there's a lot of suffering, like a lot. I mean, I had
They don't
my
even
last.
show that.
They don't show it.
Yeah, they don't
But-
show it. I just like, it's the truth. But go on.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of sort of stereotypes about entertainment industry people, film and TV industry people, and a lot of them are sort of true. But as like a creator and an artist, there's a lot of suffering. There's a lot of times when you're trying to get your thing out there and nobody's listening and nobody wants it, or you're trying to get hired as a freelancer and nobody's returning your emails or calls. But then when something magical happens, it like becomes all worth it. I remember I was sort of maybe about 7 years ago, I think 8 years ago. I was still struggling. I was still fairly new in LA. I was doing props and art direction on different movies. And I remember I got to work on this weird art film from this French like DJ who's pretty famous actually. And in the movie were Marilyn Manson was in the movie, and Eric Wareheim from Tim and Eric. I'm not sure if y'all know who that is, but I loved Tim and Eric, and they were sort of heroes of mine at the time. And they had a scene together, Marilyn Manson and Eric Wareheim, and I was in the room with them while we're shooting, and between takes, when the camera cut, they were just insulting each other, like,
Oh my gosh.
making fun of each other. Yeah. And it was the funniest thing I had ever seen and could ever hope to see. And it was like that moment was like made it so worthwhile. And that movie in particular, I remember, it was very long hours and the pay's not good on indie films. And, I was struggling. I struggled a lot just to get on that movie sort of. And then like that moment of that day made the whole thing just, And so it's those like little things really, I feel like keep you going.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. I'm so glad you got to experience that. That sounds amazing.
It was.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I think you're super cool, Sean.
Thanks. I think you're very cool too.
I don't know why
both of you.
No, you're really cool. I think you're really quirky, and I wish you all the successes in your life. You're like good people.
Yeah, thanks for
Thank you.
taking the time to speak with us today.
Yeah.
I liked it. I dug it.
Thanks. I had a great time, and y'all are great, and I hope that people can listen and realize they're not alone, and that's what we all want.
So true.
Of course,
So
Sean.
true. And we'll link to it in our episode description.
Yeah.
But listen to Sean's podcast, The Friends of the
please.
Friend.
And if
Let's be
please leave a
good.
nice review instead of a bad one if you leave a
and
review.
Yeah. Let's all overcompensate for that one. Everybody get on in it.
We're going to drown that one review out.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we should all flag it.
Yeah.
If that's a
Report
option.
as abuse or whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. That's funny.
Awesome. Thanks for your time,
All right.
Sean. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun and very insightful.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Sean. Well, you stay fresh to death, and thank you for coming on the Health Podcast.
Okay, thanks for listening to us, guys.
Yes. If you want to give a shout out or just reach us.
Yeah, or send in like a topic you want us to bullshit on.
Yeah. Our email is helpthepodcast@gmail.com. And our Instagram is
It is at The Help Podcast.
at the Help Podcast.
And you can search Facebook, The Help Podcast. We're on there as well. And you can find all of our episodes on any major podcasting platform. iTunes, Stitcher.
Or if you get confused, just email us. We'll help you.
We'll send you the link, girl. It's fine.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, guys.
Y'all have a good one.